I've never been one to believe in ghosts or the supernatural, but that night in the isolated cabin, my skepticism began to waver. The forest had been eerily quiet since dusk, the usual symphony of chirping crickets and rustling leaves, replaced by an unnerving silence. The first unsettling moment came when I decided to build a fire. I struck the match, and it ignited with a reassuring crackle. However, as I held the flame to the kindling, it refused to catch. I tried again and again, but the wood remained stubbornly unlit. It was as if some unseen force was extinguishing each spark before it could take hold. I gave up on the fire and retreated inside, seeking solace in the worn-out pages of a nearby book. The second unnerving incident occurred when I noticed the words shifting on the page. At first, I thought it was just my tired eyes playing tricks on me, but as I continued to read, the sentences seemed to rearrange themselves into something sinister. I rubbed my eyes, blinked hard, and looked again, but the text had returned to normal. Despite these strange occurrences, I tried to convince myself that it was all just a product of my overactive imagination. I decided to go for a walk, hoping the crisp night air would clear my head. As I stepped out onto the porch, I noticed a faint glow emanating from the forest edge. Curiosity piqued, I followed the light, which led me to an old, gnarled tree. Its bark seemed to writhe in the dim light, forming grotesque faces that contorted and twisted with every breath. I recoiled in horror, my heart pounding in my chest. I turned and fled back to the safety of the cabin, slamming the door behind me. My hands shook as I locked it, the sound of the deadbolt sliding into place offering little comfort. The final sentence of this part hangs heavy in the air. Something was undeniably wrong with that place, and I could no longer deny it. As I huddled under the blankets, shivering despite the warm cabin, I knew that sleep would not come easily that night. The darkness of the cabin seemed to press in on me, amplifying my fear as I listened to the relentless symphony of creaks and groans that filled the night. Every sound felt magnified, a potential threat lurking just beyond the fragile barrier of the cabin walls. My mind raced, conjuring images of gnarled branches tapping against the windows, of unseen eyes watching me from the shadows. I tried to calm myself, focusing on the mundane, the rough texture of the blanket clutched in my hands, the chill in the air that spoke of an approaching winter. I must have dozed off at some point, because I woke to a strange sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping that echoed through the cabin. My heart leapt into my throat, fearing the worst, but as I strained my ears, I realized it was coming from outside. It was rain, gentle and soothing, a stark contrast to the terror of the previous night. Despite the reassuring sound, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The third unnerving moment came when I decided to make breakfast. I opened the cabinets, only to find them nearly empty. A single can of beans and a loaf of bread stared back at me, as if mocking my desperation for normalcy. I opened the can, the smell of beans wafting through the air, but my appetite had vanished. I stepped outside onto the porch, the rain cooling against my skin. The forest seemed different in the daylight, less menacing, but the gnarled tree from the previous night stood as a stark reminder of the unexplained. I decided to explore, hoping to find some explanation for the strange occurrences. The forest was wet and muddy underfoot, every step leaving a mark on the damp earth. As I ventured deeper, I noticed something odd. The trees seemed to be closing in on me, their branches intertwining overhead to form a natural tunnel. The faint tapping of rain against leaves sounded like distant applause, urging me forward. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a clearing, and in its center stood an old stone well. Its dark maw seemed to swallow the light, casting long, ominous shadows that danced around me. I approached it, my heart pounding, drawn by an inexplicable force. As I peered into the well, I saw nothing but darkness, but the feeling of being watched returned, stronger than ever. I hurried back to the cabin, the forest seeming to close behind me, trapping me within its depths. The rain continued to fall, a constant reminder of the isolation that surrounded me. As I locked the door behind me, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had followed me back. Something hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The day passed in a blur of fear and uncertainty. The rain continued to fall, a relentless drumbeat that echoed my racing heart. As night fell, I found myself huddled under the blankets once more, listening to the symphony of creaks and groans that filled the cabin. Something was undeniably wrong with this place, but I couldn't leave. The forest had become a prison, its walls closing in around me, trapping me within its depths. As sleep finally claimed me, I knew that my fate was entwined with the forest, forever bound to its mysteries and secrets. The rain had lulled me into a restless slumber, filled with nightmares of gnarled trees and dark wells. I woke with a start, my heart pounding, only to find that the tapping on the window was not the rain, but something else. Something alive. Peering through the glass, I saw a face staring back at me. It was twisted, distorted, as if it had been carved from the very bark of the trees outside. Its eyes were black holes, devoid of life, yet they seemed to pierce the darkness and stare straight into my soul. I recoiled from the window, my heart hammering in my chest. I told myself it was just my imagination, a trick of the moonlight, but as I looked again, the face was still there, watching me with those empty eyes. The fourth unnerving moment came when I tried to leave. I grabbed my things, ready to flee the cabin and the forest that surrounded it. But the door wouldn't budge. It was as if the cabin itself didn't want to let me go, trapping me within its walls. I pulled and tugged, but the door remained stubbornly shut. The face at the window seemed to laugh, its twisted visage mocking my desperation. I felt a chill run down my spine, a cold whisper of fear that told me I was not alone. In a panic, I threw open the cabinets, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. But all I found were empty cans and moldy bread, the remnants of a long-forgotten stay. The fifth unnerving moment came when I turned to face the room. The walls seemed to have shifted, the familiar layout of the cabin twisted into something strange and alien. The furniture was arranged differently, the windows in the wrong place, as if the cabin itself was alive, changing around me. I spun in circles, my mind reeling, trying to make sense of the shifting room. But it was no use. The cabin was alive, watching me, trapping me. As I stood there, lost and terrified, I heard a soft, rhythmic tapping echo through the cabin. It was the same sound from earlier, but now it seemed to come from everywhere, a haunting melody that filled the air with dread. The face at the window had vanished, replaced by a darkness that seemed to seep into the very walls of the cabin. I could feel it watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. I was not alone in that cabin, nor in that forest. Something else was there, something ancient and unknowable. It watched me, toyed with me, trapped me within its dark embrace. As I sit here, penning these words by the fading light of the fire, I know that I am not getting out. The cabin, the forest, they won't let me go. I am a prisoner, bound to this place by unseen chains. But perhaps there is a strange sort of comfort in this captivity. I am no longer alone. The thing in the forest, the being that haunts the cabin, it has become my constant companion. It watches me, yes, but it also guards me, protects me from the world outside. In the end, I am left with more questions than answers. Who or what is my captor? Am I mad, trapped in a delusional world of my own making? Or is there truly something otherworldly at play here? I may never know the truth, but as the darkness closes in and the tapping echoes through the cabin, I find myself oddly at peace. The thing in the forest has claimed me, but perhaps it has also saved me. And in this isolated cabin, deep within the haunted woods, that is enough.